Thank you very much. I just want to start with a couple of statements, I suppose, before we get underway. We're going to do this as a tag team, LeAnne and I, but almost a disclaimer. We've had a few things going on, and as this presentation unfolds, you'll see that. So it won't be the best PowerPoint you've ever seen put together, but it'll certainly be effective. And we're going to talk this afternoon, I think, from an individual situation point of view with what we put forward. When I had the discussion with Phil Glyde as to whether we would come and talk to you this afternoon, or whether we could come and talk to you this afternoon, it was certainly his intent that we share, I suppose, some of the issues that we've faced as we've dealt with not only the immediate, which has only been in the last few weeks, but what's led to that over a period of time. So I'm going to kick off proceedings, and some of the photos that you'll see up here depict, I suppose, what we've dealt with as we've gone through several changes, not only in our business, but with what's been dealt to deal with around us. And I'm going to start off with the drought, because I think in a lot of the material that's been presented today and what we've heard in this session, the impacts and the variation in the climate in Australia is what agriculture has to deal with day in, day out. And for us, the drought in Queensland really started in the early 90s. And ironically enough, in the last few years, we've lapsed back into more normal seasons, which I'm pleased to state has been a welcome relief. I wouldn't say that's been in all districts, though, across Queensland, and certainly not Australia. But we got a pretty rude awakening to the harshness of drought in the early 90s, and 1992, 94 and 95 actually didn't even plant a winter crop. And it was probably the recipe for a real navel-gazing situation as to what we do for the future, how do we deal with it. And at that time we could have easily said, well, we don't know whether agriculture's for us. But we changed our system and we changed our approach. We actually grew a business off that drought, a silage business that my brother now operates. And it put the platform, I suppose, into the catalyst that has led us to make some of the decisions we have in the last few years to continue to expand. Into that, of course, in the business, as our three boys showed an interest to become part of that business, we had to make sure that we had a structure and we had an economy of scale that would take us into the future. And that led us to make some of the decisions that we did over the last 5 years. And I think they've been the right decisions, and I'm sure they've been for the right reason. But like a lot of these things, and I think this is part of the message that we all probably should deal with a bit more, and that is that you can make all the right decisions, timing's everything, and sometimes you've got no control over that, and the outcome of it then has to be managed. And I think that's a good prelude to lead into what LeAnne will take you through with the floods. Because what I'm alluding to is a major expansion for us in the last 5 years, an add on a new property to purchased land in a different district 2 years ago, built a new dairy and expanded the business and expanded the operation significantly, still bedding all that down, and then as has been depicted here, then a major event like we've just had. And we've dealt with that and battled with that really over the last 12 months since last March. And I'll hand over to LeAnne to take you through some of the challenges that that's bestowed us.
Yes, well, as Wes said, the wet weather began for us in March when we got hit with 7.5 inches over 3 days and delivered for what we thought then was a flood, or so we thought. And it sort of stayed wet with us throughout the rest of the year, but really revved up again for us in September. And from September on, grounds actually being quite saturated. When we moved and built at this new farm, we felt that we were going to try and cover all the bases, and so we built our dairy to the height of the levee bank that was surrounding all the infrastructure at the new farm, so as to keep the floodwaters out. Bear in mind we're probably 1 kilometre back from the river. And so we did that. We built a feed pad up for the cows so that they could have their feed on the feed pad, and we felt that, you know, if a flood came, we were somewhat protected. That levee bank there is to the height of the flood, the 1976 flood, which was the highest on record at that stage, and a little bit above that. So we felt rather comfortable. However, in the week prior to Christmas, the highway just up the road from us was shut, and we got hit with another flood. That was probably the 5th time this year that the river has come out of its banks and flooded the lower part of our farm. And then we didn't really have Christmas as such, and on the 28th of December we got flooded again, and that's when we realised what a real flood really was. Prior to the 28th, on the Monday morning whilst we milked, we got hit with a storm. It had rained all night. We got hit with a storm where we got about 5.5 inches out of that storm in a matter of 2 hours. And I've never seen my husband walk out to the door and look to the skies, and I know he was actually praying for it to stop. We were all getting a little concerned at that stage. And we spent all that day on the Monday pumping the water out of the levee. That water there is what fell inside the levee. That's not from the flood. And I actually decided to go and pack my daughter-in-law's and my son's house up and get her and my granddaughter out. So we spent all Monday putting everything up, just in case. I didn't want to put the fear of everything into her, but I was rather concerned. And then by lunchtime that day, Wes and I decided we should go into Millmerran and get some more fuel for those pumps. And we couldn't even get into Millmerran because the overland flow coming from the Millmerran way behind us had cut the road. So we decided, well, the best thing we can do is go back to the dairy and start and milk. We'd already put the cows inside the levee bank that day and fed them in troughing, which we'd put there prior to that, a few days before, because we were watching the weather events and what they were saying, and we were a little bit concerned, as I said, but we were just taking every precaution that we could. So we went down and we milked, and the waters kept getting higher. And this little chap here in the photo actually is across the road, and I decided to take him home. I couldn't even find my way into their house for the water at that stage, so that's when I went back and I started to pack everybody up. And Wes and the boys in the meantime had got an excavator from next door and started rearranging or adding to the levee bank, and the best thing we could do was start and put everything up. By 7 p.m, when I took my son's car up the road and my daughter-in-law, the water was halfway up the Prado door. And when Wes took me home at 11 p.m, after I'd gone back and helped the boys and him put more stuff up, it was to the top of the bull bar on the Land Cruiser ute. And then by 11 p.m, by 2 p.m, when Wes came home, because he was really concerned about all us girls up the road, he filled the tray of that Land Cruiser ute and he didn't have to put it in there. That's how high the water was that he was coming through. So he came in and he was really concerned, and he said, I think we need to get out. I said, well, where the heck do you think we're going to go? Couldn't even get out at lunchtime. The only thing we could do was sit and pray, and I said, well, if the worst comes to worst, we go from the table to the roof. When we got up, we watched the water, I might add, from the veranda, and it peaked at 4 a.m. that morning. And that's the sight that met us at about 5 o'clock, or 4:30 as the sun was coming up. It was like sitting in a houseboat surrounded by water, watching it all rush past you. So the worst part was, though, during this whole period, everything was in shutdown. We were in that week between Christmas and New Year. Everything was shut down. All we had On the radio was holiday program, so we were oblivious to what was coming, and so we were taking advice off the wireless outback, chit-chat line, everybody ringing everybody, and we got told there was another wall of water coming our way. So we made the decision to evacuate my daughter-in-law and our granddaughter out, put a lot of people to a lot of trouble. As it turned out, they could have stayed. That wall of water never came, it never got any higher than that.